Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. This is, of course, the podcast where we sample what is going on in the world of television and film and let you know the deets. That's how we call them here. The deets about what's going on. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today, as always, it's Grace Leeder. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well. There is a lot. I'll get into some deets. We got the deets. Do we have the deets? We have.
We
the
always
deets.
have the deets.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sophisticated podcast where you get deets
If
about
you
things.
eat too many deets, does it make your pee turn red? Oh, that's beets. That's beets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We're a classy pod, Taryn.
we are a classy podcast. You know, somebody said on the live feed update the other day, they were like, "Yeah, I watched the Tastemakers is
Oh.
must listen to
Oh,
podcasting. It makes me feel informed and sophisticated."
that's good. That's exactly what we want. That's basically like the tagline of the podcast. I
Yeah.
was telling a lot of people at I was at TIFF and I went to I went to the Penguin premiere, Taryn. I got a Toronto Penguin premiere. I was there and people were like, what's your podcast? And I said, Tastemakers. We watch everything and tell you what you should and shouldn't watch. And they're like, I actually need that so bad. And so I feel like we're filling a void, we're filling a need with
Yeah.
our deets.
With the deets. That's
Mm.
what we do. Well, what's on the docket here today? Because there's some shows that are going on, including, as you mentioned, The Penguin. We've a bit light on news, I would say. We were very like, I mean, last episode was a great episode. Emmys,
Yeah, lots of news. Oh yeah,
tons of stuff. So we're kind of like recovering from that, talking about some of the shows that are on, getting back on track in terms of that schedule. I am just a few weeks away from being able to like fully dive back into the world of scripted television as I'm
if you're a reality
currently
star person, is like Big Brother, Survivor, The Circle, and everything else that's on television.
currently trying to wrap up the end of Big Brother in the next 3 weeks, but then I'll be watching all of the things.
Is it true that you told them, don't worry about doing another season of Big Brother Canada? I'm going to be doing the Tastemakers. Don't worry, you can cancel the show. Don't worry.
Listen,
I need my winter to be freed.
I don't want them to be mad at me, the
Yeah.
Big Brother Canada fans, but yeah, it might have happened that way.
Well, I think the most exciting news, Taran, we have a new web link, which is weknowscriptedtv.com, which people can check out to make sure you're subscribed to all the We Know Scripted pods that you need to be subscribed to. Make sure you're subscribed. It's downloading into your feed. Tell a friend. And we're on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube as well to make sure you're catching everything. I feel like the actual headline, Taran, that was a little bit of a fake headline to convince people to be subscribed to our podcast, which is that Industry got renewed. Did you see this for season 4? So big news, I think. Viewership is up this season. I think episode 5 had its record number of people watching the episode during the week. It's good news for Industry. The other thing I feel like when I was out on the town, I was telling you this when we were doing Rings of Power, was that people would be like, what are you watching? I'd say Industry. I'd say, oh, I heard it's really good. And then they would say, and also Rings of Power. And they say, oh, I heard that's really bad. And I had to tell them, you're wrong about Rings of Power. It's actually very fun and you should check it out. I did not have to convince people to be watching Industry because they were already watching Industry or excited to watch Industry. I feel like this is a really smart move to renew it now, because what this means is that they can have tremendous success with these last episodes of the seasons, which are both written and directed by the showrunners. It's the first time they're directing episodes as well. So they took the jump into the last 2 episodes. If they're good and they make some noise, people are going to start to catch up on this thing. And whether they do it like now while the buzz is happening or when Industry season 4 is coming back, you can get people to do this thing that happens a lot where you see the viewership of the previous seasons go up as people are watching Industry. It was another tremendous episode last night, a really good penultimate episode of the season, firing on all cylinders. But good news for a show that doesn't get a tremendous amount of viewership, but seems like it could break through into that critical acclaim bucket. It obviously didn't have any impact at the Emmys this year. I would suspect in a year from now, when Industry probably a little bit longer than a year is coming back, there's going to be some good buzz around it, both critically and I think fan-wise. So fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good strategy to push it to Sundays, to push it right after House of the Dragon ended, advertising Sir Jon Snow. And
Who has not been in the show for like 4 episodes, I have to say. I have to admit. If you're gonna binge Industry and be like, can't wait for my Jon Snow, he's in like the first 3, and then he's just like is not really around. So
But it
yeah,
makes you feel like this is,
yeah,
in some ways a, successor to shows like Succession, like prestige
yeah,
shows, right?
yeah, I agree.
And so, I think that they did a good job of really pushing that. It sounds like they've also, like, stepped up their game this season, so,
Yeah.
it's not that often that you see a story like this, Succession did find some success later, in its run in terms of how I remember it.
I
I
get
feel like
snowballed a
people
little bit too. John snowballed, is that a thing? No,
yes,
not really
like,
for
I feel like
Succession, but
people came upon it more so in season 2, but, like,
yeah,
people were still loved season 1. It was mostly just the first couple of episodes that some people were a little bit, like, not sure about. But, for a season to really find its stride in its 3rd, or sorry, for a show to find its stride in its 3rd season is quite interesting, especially in this realm of, like, prestige HBO television. So, interesting stuff from
yeah.
Industry.
The other thing I heard in an interview from the Hacks creators who won Best Comedy, Taryn, I heard that they have a 5-season plan. They admitted that and when they pitched it, when they were pitching the show, actually they made a joke that they pitched the show with a 5-season plan, and they know what the last scene of that show is going to be. They pitched it in the market, and then when they were pitching it to HBO was like, "Oh, actually, don't tell us the ending. We're good with the show. We're going to greenlight it." And so their joke was every other executive at every other network knows the ending to Hacks except for except for HBO. But interesting. Do you like when you know that the showrunners have a plan? That made me feel more confident in Hacks, knowing that they have a plan rather than go. But I think Industry was a show that couldn't do that. Like it never knew whether it was going to have legs, and
Yeah.
so I feel like that first season feels more contained in a way that I feel like the ending of season 2 then was cliffhangery in a way that I think the ending of season 3 is going to be really cliffhangery because they have a little bit of like momentum going, knowing that they're likely going to get renewed. And
Well,
yeah,
that's interesting to me because Hacks is not a show that feels like it has a plan. It almost makes me feel like they're saying that it does because I would imagine the biggest criticism of the show is that it
they
really doesn't feel like it has a
they claim that
plan.
they always knew. I mean, spoiler, but
I
that she
mean,
was
it's
going to
one
get a
thing
talk
to
show.
it listen, How I Met Your Mother taught me that
Oh,
it's one thing to know what the ending of your show is and another to have an actual plan for how to get there. You know what I mean?
yeah, that show always felt like it was like they should have ended that show at like season 5, and the ending makes sense. And then they were like,
Exactly.
we got to fill in 4 seasons of a show to get to the act, and then we're gonna do the ending we had planned all along, which is a big
Yeah.
mistake. But
They ruined their own ending by
they did,
extending the show.
because I think the ending
Um,
is actually fine, except for the 4 seasons of things that happened before the actual ending.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
Um,
you interested? I mean, I think you said you have been busy, but the Penguin dropped. There's a lot of shows on right now, Taryn. I think between uh the Penguin, obviously watching Rings of Power. Slow Horses is rolling through. It's halfway done because it's a short. They only do 6-episode seasons. From is coming back, which people keep telling me. There's 2 new Ryan Murphy shows that premiered.
mhm.
Um,
I'm a big
you
From guy.
yeah, great, great.
I enjoy From. I can't remember if we've talked about this on the podcast or not,
I think
but
when you were with Josh, I think that Josh mentioned that From was coming back. Yeah,
yes, well, if From is a fun show. It's one of those, like, just have a good time with it. It's got some really fun horror elements to it that I like, and it's obviously very mystery-esque. Even has one of the actors from Lost in it as one of the main characters to give it that, like, it's got a little bit of that Lost in it. So happy to see it coming back for another season. I'm very excited to watch Penguin. I have not yet. Basically, again, The Circle is on. It's dropping 4 episodes a week. I've got to
yeah.
watch all 4 episodes. Also, TwitchCon was this weekend, but the next chance I get, I'm watching The Penguin, and I'm very excited to do so.
Yes, okay. From I do feel like I need like a spooky show. I know Agatha All Along is out as well, but I need like a legit. Is it like it says it's a horror show? Is it like it it's a nightmare
It.
town, right? It traps
I
people who
would
enter.
say. I would say like 10% is like horror-y and
Okay.
fun because of it. The atmosphere is like, I'll give you the basic premise of From, right? It's that, this family is driving, they wind up in this town. Everyone's acting weird. It's a very Twilight Zone-esque, like, setup,
Okay.
and it turns out that in this town, when night falls, you need to be inside,
Oh,
because
okay.
if you're not
Okay.
inside, you get attacked by these people that are very scary,
Okay.
um,
I like that. That sounds
and
fun.
don't let them in, right? Like,
Right.
very and then turns out you can't leave the town either.
Oh.
So,
Mm.
that's kind of the very basic setup, but there's a lot of, like, actual lore about, like, how it works and why it's the way it is, and there's a lot of mystery, and there's still a lot of stuff that we don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know, but, it's fun. It's fun like that.
Okay, what I would like to know is okay. I do feel I feel like I could really get into this. I'm gonna watch it. It is for me. It does start to feel like spooky season. Like we're about to turn the page into the
Mm.
calendar in October. Are you into the horror stuff? Like what I want to know from you. Like do you like seek out? Is there particular Halloween content or spooky that you like are going back to around this time of year? Are you looking for something new to watch that's like spooky? Like how are you getting into the festive season of Halloween?
I mean, as you all likely know if you have been listening to this podcast, I'm a big horror guy. And so what I have liked to do in the past is, like, during the month of October, uh, just only watch horror.
Yeah.
Basically, like, watch a horror movie every chance I get. There are some good horror shows that I've, been able to watch in the past, and, just, like, try to theme it around horror as much as possible. The problem sometimes is that, similar to what's happening right now, Big Brother ends,
Yeah.
October comes, and I have a bunch
Yeah.
of stuff I need to catch up on, let
Yeah.
alone if I was only
How
watching
scary,
horror.
Taryn.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
So, I, definitely enjoy, throwing the horse. I would love to do a Tastemakers that is dedicated to horror at some point, maybe at the
Okay.
end of October. We can do a Halloween-themed
I
Tastemaker.
I love that. The one thing I've been trying to catch, I haven't found a chance to get it. It's came out of TIFF and was the Midnight Madness choice. Midnight Madness is essentially like every night at midnight. There's a movie it starts at midnight. I try to do one every year because otherwise I'm a baby who doesn't see like 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. ever. So I do
Mhm.
one. I did Friendship this year, which was not really like horror-y. It was more, it's obviously like a sitcom, but The Substance was a movie that came out, just dropped in the movie theaters. It's to me more, I think the premise, I don't really know. I try not to, again, I'm very similar to you. I try not to really look up stuff, but my
Mhm.
understanding is that it's like a substance that keeps you young, and then all of the things that might come in a horror movie
Right.
from using a substance that tries to keep you young. It got rave reviews. It won the Midnight Madness Award. I had some rumblings that maybe it could have even placed in the People's Choice just of how fun it was. It came out immediately afterwards, so I kind of deprioritized it, knowing it was in theaters this weekend. So I'm going to check that out. I would love to know from the listeners what you do to get into horror movie season, in October season, Halloween season, what you watch, what you're going to watch. And if you have recommendations for maybe what we should be checking out if we do a Halloween episode in about
I'd
a
love to
month.
put together, like, a top 5 to 10 list of horror movies from this year and
Oh,
maybe throw some
fun.
shows in there too. Like, that'd
That's
be that'd
fun.
be really cool.
I love that. I love putting together a poll, Taryn. So we could have some official ballots, even from some of our friends who could
Mm.
submit official ballots. The audience could submit one as well. That sounds very fun. I want to talk a little bit about. I mentioned the Ryan Murphy show. There's the Menendez brothers show. So Monster. Monster is one of the many Ryan Murphy anthology shows, a la American Horror Story. There is American Crime Story. There is now American Sports Story, which also premiered a few days ago. But Monster is the show that seemingly is about. I thought it was going to be about serial killers, and now I think it's just generally about. I don't even know what the definition would be.
So,
Let me
yeah,
see if
so
they
this
have
is
it.
this is the Monster is season 2
Yeah,
of a show, or Monsters, is season 2, is it season 2? It's
yeah,
season 1.
yeah. No, it's season two because officially season one was Monster
Okay,
hyphen the Jeffrey Dahmer story, and now we're getting Monster hyphen the Lyle and Eric Menendez story.
okay.
So it is an anthology show under the monster realm, and it's pretty confusing because there's also American Sports Story, which has done that is doing the Aaron Hernandez story, but there's also American Crime Story, which
Right.
did the OJ story. which is a sports story. So I'm
Well,
not sure how you
this is a
decide
crime
how they.
story.
It is well, but isn't Aaron Hernandez also? No, I guess
Oh,
not. Right?
I
Yeah,
don't know
no, isn't
enough
he?
about sports to know if that's also a crime story.
He went to prison. I don't know. See, I mean, I just do feel like to a degree. Yeah, he was arrested and charged for the murder of a person. So
So yeah, so American Crime Story was OJ. It was the assassination of Gianni Versace, and then the impeachment season with Bill Clinton.
right,
Um,
right. An
and
American Love
then
Story is apparently coming too. Which again, you know what? Ryan Murphy, make money. Who can go for it? Do it. Do your thing. It's just it's a little confusing to me. And this is basically like this is his all of these are FX properties. All of these except for American American Monster is not in the American blank story. It
right.
is called Monster, so it is a Netflix property. Okay.
Mhm.
Nevertheless, that's not really what I wanted to get to. I didn't really want to like decipher how Ryan Murphy is making a bunch of money. I think he's just making a bunch of money. Um, Interestingly, similar to the Jeffrey Dahmer show that came out, there's a lot of concerns about this show and the idea of just like delving into this world, traumatizing the victims of the crimes Jeffrey Dahmer committed, glorifying Jeffrey Dahmer, all sorts of different things that came up. Feel like that passed. I think he won the Emmy for his performance as Jeffrey Dahmer. Kind of passed. Then there's this show that's coming at Monster, and it's about Lyle and Eric Menendez, and they're both still alive. And there were some reports came out that they were not terribly pleased with their portrayal in the show. There's a complex story where they killed their parents. This is a true story. It's not spoiling anything. They killed their parents, but there also seems to be allegations that they were abused as children, and that's why it is actually like more of a self-defense story. Nevertheless, they released a statement. Just recently, it was announced that in addition to Monster, Netflix is also going to be producing, with the cooperation of the Menendez brothers, a Menendez brothers true crime documentary. And I think this is a pretty interesting approach from Netflix because my first instinct is, even if I have sympathy for the way that the Menendez brothers are portrayed, like the way, yeah, if like I've only watched a bit of the first episode here. I'm skeptical about the idea that actually I think sometimes art gets a little bit messy when you have the people who are the subject of what is being talked about be involved in the creation and get any sort of sign off in which they are portrayed. And that is a different thing than I think like there is an ethical way to make to make a biopic and an unethical way to make a biopic. And every director, every writer who creates this stuff inherently puts their own stamp. You can say that you're being unbiased, but you're choosing to tell the story. You're choosing to say things and not say other things. And I think it's very interesting that Netflix is then like, well, what if we just make a documentary with you? In which they're probably going to make money off of that by like having more content on their website. I don't know. It's a very interesting solution to like the brothers are unhappy about their portrayal in the TV show.
I mean, I would assume that this was in the works, no?
Let's pull up the story in terms of to see whether the Menendez when this happened, if they have any information about that. There's also this Netflix is also in the midst of this Prince documentary saga. I don't know if you're familiar with this, where there's a long series coming, or it's been created. I believe it's basically finished. It's 9 hours. The Prince estate has basically halted the release of this Netflix documentary on the grounds that the documentary, when it was initially agreed to, would only be 6 hours. So they're holding it up, seemingly with the belief that also they do not want this documentary to be released. It doesn't really matter whether it's 6 or 9 hours. They don't want the content of it to be released, but because they needed the sign off. And so it's basically being like litigated. And Netflix is basically defending the creator of the show, basically being like, we believe that the artistic merit is in the 9-hour version. Probably also because then you get people on your platform for 9 hours, 9 hours, Taran. But yeah.
I mean, honestly, when you said 9-hour documentary without the context of it being a television show,
I believe it's a television show. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that you succinctly like summed it up for me why I don't like Netflix documentary series.
Uh-huh.
They're too long.
Yeah, fair.
I think that's one of the biggest problems I have with them is that they're too long and they meander and they don't. For me at least, it's a problem for me. So listen, I'm with them. Make it 6 hours.
Maybe did I make this up that they're actually not getting a doc? No, I think that they are getting this documentary, but Yeah, new documentary. Let me just see. It's coming October 7th. So I get, yeah, it definitely was in the works then. And so
Yeah.
they're just doing both of these things at the same time.
So it behooves them to say, "Oh man, this show that Netflix made really doesn't tell the true story. If you want the true story, watch this other show that Netflix made to find out the truth.
That's
Not that silly dramatized version that Netflix did. Come to us here at Netflix to find out the truth."
that's that's so funny. That's pretty hilarious on their part to be like, we also have the true story over here. Come check it out. I mean, this
This
is Netflix bread and butter right here. It's like the
Yeah.
the true crime stuff for sure.
And what we've talked about, it's like it's in universe, right? Like this is spin-off content. This is like
Basically IP that they just launched IP.
the Menendez brothers true crime documentary does a lot better when it immediately follows the Monsters Menendez Lyle and Eric Menendez story TV show. Like they feed into one another.
That's fast. This is fascinating to me that it's already been made and it's coming out in a month, and the show all just dropped a few days ago, less than a week ago.
It's good strategy.
Okay, yeah, I guess it is. Right? It is, right? Unless you're really in it and like, I mean, this is the problem with like, I basically like, you know, media criticism that most people just are gonna just pop on their Netflix and see that they're gonna and likely get one or the other as well. Like eventually they might get the other, but our Netflix algorithms. I was hearing this as well. Did you know that like? Do you know they have? There's a few things I've learned about Netflix recently, which is you know that we all have like algorithm AI to even if you and I are being recommended the same show, Taran, but because of the other things we've watched and liked, we are getting sold different versions of that show. So, for example,
Different thumbnails and stuff.
Stranger Things, if you end up watching it because you've watched a bunch of like 80s movies, you are going to get a thumbnail that is going to cater to you as an 80s movie fan. And if I love rom-coms, they're going to pitch Stranger Things to me as like the love story between two of the characters in the thing. And that's what the thumbnail is going to be. This is fascinating to me. Also, I did learn recently you can turn off coming up next time on thumbnails so that you don't get spoiled. You can turn in your Netflix settings to turn those off, which is very interesting. Because like sometimes you're like the cliffhanger is like, did this person die? And then they're like in the thumbnail for a future episode. So you can just turn those off apparently in your Netflix settings. I didn't know this, but yeah. They've really got us, Taran. I think it's Netflix in particular has just.
I'm pretty sure my Stranger Things is very horror themed. I don't know if that's unique to me.
Yeah,
but.
that would make sense if you just yeah. It's just so interesting that it's all just developed by AI.
All right. Well, tell me what should I be excited about? Penguin. I'm hearing good things.
Okay, here is so I got to go to a Penguin premiere. I was there. Also, Kevin Jacobs was there as well, hanging out in Toronto.
You're just hanging out watching things.
I know. It was an event put on by Crave. I did realize it was for a bunch of influencers. I'm not an influencer, but that's okay. My first reaction to the I know. My first reaction to the show, Taran, was that I was underwhelmed. I will admit. I went and watched it in a movie theater, and I was very excited. I love the Batman, and then in my brain, I was like, yeah, that like superhero action movie that I saw that I loved. I hadn't rewatched the Batman, and I went into the Penguin, being like, I'm gonna watch the superhero show. So I thought it was going to be very superhero-y, and actually, it's pretty slow. But on my rewatch, I really appreciated the pace of it, and I had to readjust my calculation from being like action and explosions to basically a mob show, like a mafia show.
I think that's what I was anticipating.
Yeah, this is like the underworld, the crime family sagas in the underworld of Gotham. And I think Colin Farrell is very, very good in this show. I think it's kind of undeniable. The show is well acted overall. It has a moody, sort of slow. We're thinking more like interrogation scenes than like car chase scenes. And maybe we'll get some big action set piece, like maybe one over the course of the show. But I think overall, we're looking at a slower, methodical show that I thought on my rewatch, I very much appreciated and liked. It was pretty funny. It's got a little bit of like a buddy duo dynamic happening where like Penguin is going to take a young homeless kid off the street, basically like under his wing to be his protege and be teaching him all the things. Penguin is trying to play both sides of these two families there's currently like a vacuum of power based on what happened at the end of the Batman movie. I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it's gritty, well done. I'm excited for more, and I think that the end of the episode really like sets you up for more of what we got, but in a way that I felt was exciting. So I thought it was very good premiere. Mike Bloom and I recapped it. So I would encourage people to check out The Penguin.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think they screwed up a little bit with their marketing because I think the most I've heard about the Penguin was how much Colin Farrell hated having to put the makeup on and didn't want to play the character anymore.
I told Mike this. There was I'm assuming like this version that we got of the episode was like sent around to, there was probably many of these premiere parties all over the like in your city with like people, and Colin Farrell did a little bit of like, hi, thanks for coming to the Penguin, but he was so flat, and so he did not seem excited to do the intro for like, I think they like literally probably just took the makeup off him, and he was like, all right, I guess enjoy this episode of the Penguin. Like, it was so, there was no emotion.
Please don't like this. I don't want to do any more of it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. But yeah, I thought the first episode was strong enough to keep me enticed and keep watching. Which I think was good. I needed to sort of just like recalibrate. I think I've been thinking about this a lot of like, especially after TIFF, where I feel like I would watch like these movies like all throughout the day, and you would have these different expectations of like, we've talked about the expectation thing before, about like when you hear someone says it's good, and then you're in the movie and you're thinking like, is it as good as I think they think it is, or oh, I think this is better. But also like when you watch a movie, how you watch a movie, I think that a lot of that can go into like your overall enjoyment. And it's very weird to think that like going and sitting in a movie theater would change my experience of watching The Penguin, but it is a television show. It's not a movie. And so I do think like there was a little bit for me having to be like rethinking what I did to then rewatch it. And if I wasn't podcasting about it, I might have waited till episode 2, and then maybe it's episode 2 that I'm like, oh, actually I see what they're doing here, that I would have recalibrated. But I do feel like that changed my expectations and my viewing of the first episode, but still good. Yeah.
There is one thing I wanted to just put on some people's radar because I've not had a chance to check it out myself yet, but I have been hearing that it's actually pretty good, which is the City of God TV show.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if the listeners will be aware of City of God. I hope so. But it's, in my opinion, one of the best films of all time. It genuinely just a really, really engaging movie about, about the City of God. It came out a long time ago now.
2002, I think, is when the show comes
2002.
out.
So
Yeah.
it's been like 22 years. But and I believe that they tried to do a spin-off show before, but this is a sort of like more official spin-off show. It has many of the, or at least some of the same actors from the original movie. And I've been hearing good things, that it's like it's a proper continuation of the plot and the city and so on and so forth. So just in case anybody was not aware that this was happening, and you're a big City of God fan like me, worth taking a look at.
Yeah, it looks like they tried in 2000. Well, not they tried. In 2007, they did do no, sorry, they did a TV series in 2000 right after 2002, 2005, called City of Men, and then there's a film version of the TV series. So they adapted the TV series that was like a sequel into a movie in 2007, and now there's this new TV show set in Rio de Janeiro, I believe, loosely based on real life events, based on a novel that came out in 1987, City of God. Big fan of the movie. Haven't watched this other TV show or the other movie, but I will certainly be checking out.
Yes, and I don't think you need to have watched City of Men or any of those things to get this. And the show is called City of God: The Fight Rages On.
Right.
So,
you said a lot of the same people. That's kind of fun. That's fun that they have.
I at least see a couple of people, I think, that are here again. So,
and it's on I believe it's on Max, HBO Latino, or Max. You can watch it on. Okay. interested in that. Looks like is there just 2 episodes, or there's been more than that?
I think they have 5 episodes out so far.
The Wikipedia needs updating, you gotta say.
Yeah.
That's okay. It says some pretty good reviews that I'm saying. Okay, interested. I wanted to give some book recommendations. A few weeks ago at the end of the pod, I said that I had been reading Red Rising, and I had finished one of the books, was going to the next one. But there's 2 new books that came out or are just about to come out. Are you familiar with The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, Taran? Do you know? Richard Osman is a British comedian, game show host, panelist, podcaster, now
I know of Richard Osman.
So he wrote Thursday Murder Clubs. It is being adapted into, there's, I think, 4 of those books so far. It's being adapted into a movie that is going to have, it has a pretty stellar cast, I think. And basically the idea is that the Thursday Murder Club is a group of seniors who at their seniors home solve cold case murders. And basically every book is they kind of get wrapped up into a more serious case that they are able to then try and solve. Steven Spielberg, I believe, picked up the rights to make it into a movie, or his production company did, at least. I believe it's going to Netflix. But the cast is Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, Ben Kingsley, David Tennant, Jonathan Pryce, Naomi Ackie. It's a pretty fun group of people that they've got, at least, and the 4 folks that they have, like Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, Ben Kingsley, and Celia Imrie, are playing sort of our core 4 people of the Thursday Murder Club. I say all this because I love his books. I love the Thursday Murder Club. Very excited for the adaptation. He just released a new book called We Solve Murders, which is basically a new series that he's writing. I believe he's called it Book 1, so long as it's successful. I'm only about a quarter of the way through, but I'm very much enjoying it and like to put out recommendations. I feel like we don't do this enough, which is like you and I both read for a bit. And so We Solve Murders is sort of, I think if you've liked Thursday Murder Club, you'd be aware of We Solve Murders, but it's out. And if you were at least tangentially interested, you could certainly go pick up Thursday Murder Club, but you could kind of also jump quickly into this new one, We Solve Murders. It's basically about a father, like a father-in-law and his daughter-in-law, obviously, who both get, again, looped. He does like to stick in this like crime thing. It's called We Solve Murders, but they seem to be looped into a bigger crime. He's a retired detective, and she is a like sort of like bodyguard who works for an agency. But yeah, they get like sort of like unknowingly wrapped up into this thing, and probably will try to solve the murder, I assume.
I would hope so.
Yeah. So there's that. And then also Sally Rooney's new book, Intermezzo, drops today. And this is interesting, Taran, that I just saw right before we started, which is that she wrote Normal People, which I don't know if you've watched that television show, but
I did watch that show.
Yeah, very, very good. She's actually said now that she has no plans to sell the rights for her future books because of how she felt about Normal People being adapted. I want to see if I can like find this article that I saw.
That it went too off script, or
I think it's more like she just didn't really like the process, but I want to see if I can now of course I can't find this. Now I can't find
well
this.
while you look for it,
yeah.
you joggled my memory.
Yeah.
I finished a book recently,
Yeah.
called Fourth Wing,
Okay.
which blew up a little while ago. It was a huge book. Fantasy romance is the book genre. So I put it on my list because I was like, oh, I mean, like deep into fantasy. It's not every day that like a fantasy book really blows up like that. I'll check it out. Gave it a read, and boy, is it romance.
Amazon has picked it up.
And that's what I wanted to talk about, which is that, yes, Amazon has picked it up, and I think fairly recently tapped Moira Walley-Beckett as the showrunner. I actually think this could do well, especially like, so what's interesting about this book, it very much is like, it's a romance, and it's a horny ass romance.
Like they have their fantasy creatures have horns, or they're super horny?
Not a lot of horns, not a lot of actual horns,
Okay.
just a lot of horniness. And what's interesting is that like basically the sex scenes in the book are the climax of the book.
Oh,
And the
okay.
fantasy plot is really just like set dressing.
Yeah.
But it's still like it's fairly by the book, but like it's done decently well, the fantasy plot. And the characters actually kind of feel like they work. And so it's this interesting combination of things that has this like mass mainstream appeal, especially now that fantasy is in the mainstream, while still being in this like more typical fantasy setting. Lots of dragons involved. And so for this to be adapted by Amazon, I think that it could really work. I think this could really blow up as a show as well. So I'm curious to see its progression. I didn't think I'd like the book, to be honest, but it kept me engaged the whole way through, even though I was cringing at times.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like
So
it was a book
interesting stuff.
talk viral sensation that went as a result was a number one times bestseller. So,
Yeah.
and there's a second one and a third one on the way. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll add it to my. Although saucy is maybe not my forte, but
Let me tell you, if saucy is not your forte, like let me tell you, when they get into those scenes and normally
uh-huh.
it's like it stops at like 10%, it goes to like 150%. Like they go round 2 and it's like we're still going. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to see. So it's an Amazon Prime, but MGM. It's Amazon Prime MGM, which I'm not I can't quite tell if that's regular Amazon Prime or that is because like From is an MGM Plus, but I don't know if that means it's Amazon. It would be Amazon Prime or MGM Plus, which is interesting. But there's some
Fair.
stuff I think that I think Prime does skew a little younger. I think in terms of like I think like the Boys, Some Right Turn
Mhm.
Pretty. What else do they've had some stuff on there that I feel like feels like okay, I would get. And I think getting a book for Amazon makes a ton of sense.
Oh,
Like
of
I
course.
can't imagine that like part of the equation of adapting Wheel of Time wasn't like, and then maybe people will buy Wheel of Time on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, and then they'll ship it right to my house because I
100%.
have Amazon Prime the next day. So that was interesting. I wonder whether there's like a link. I'll look into this, whether there's a link between Amazon Prime looking for book adaptations more
I
than
mean, I feel like they
probably
do a ton.
yeah, yeah, just so Sally Rooney says basically the reason why she just didn't really like the like what she ended up being involved in. I don't mean like controversially, just like so she says so far I've not decided to accept any options for the rights to her third book, which is Beautiful World, Where Are You? Normal People in Conversation with Friends. Those are her the first and second books, although interesting, like Normal People came before Conversation with Friends in terms of adaptation. But she just said that the reason she chose not to be involved in her second adaptation, which was Conversation with Friends, was because she was working on her third novel. The experience on working on Normal People had been in many ways amazing, but it also felt like a really big job. And then the show was broadcast, and it felt like a lot in terms of the amount of discord that it generated and the amount of media attention it got. She felt like she belonged in, that's not where she belonged in the world of television. I know now that my books are where I belong, and that's all I want to be doing. So that doesn't mean she would never option the books, but if she does also feel like she would need control over the book adaptation in a way that it would involve her to be heavily involved, she is not interested in that, which I think is quite interesting to essentially leave money on the table, presumably because of, I feel like a very wise choice to say, like, I actually don't want to do the work that I don't like doing. I think that's totally fair. And also not wanting to relinquish potential creative adaptation control. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what else?
Uh,
What else we got?
uh, I don't have much else. There's not much happening at the box office. Beetlejuice won second week in a row. The only competition for it was seemingly Transformers 1, which is an animated movie. So I think as much as it could have done well, I am not surprised to see the Beetlejuice. But I will say, when I went to go see Beetlejuice, there was a lot of kids in the audience for a movie that I'm not sure a lot of children should have been for. And that's no judgment. Take your kids. You know your kids better than I do. I feel like that was advertised as a kids movie more than it actually is a kids movie. If that
I mean, I
makes
think
sense.
isn't that kind of how the first one was too?
Yeah, I think so. But was it? I don't know. I think I'm too young to know whether that was advertised. It's literally before I was born, Taran. I gotta say. So, um,
I mean,
but
like, when I watched Beetlejuice as a kid, and like, it felt like a dark movie that I maybe shouldn't be watching, but in a way that I was still entertained as a kid because it was such
how
a
old are
kid.
you? How old are you?
God, I have no I was very, very young for sure.
Yeah, I saw some like
Um,
6-year-olds at Beetlejuice. Yeah, I'm not judging. I guess I am judging. I am judging. I say I'm not judging. I was definitely judging, but I think it also speaks to that there weren't a lot of kids movies around right now. Like Transformers 1 is now kind of come in and potentially been a movie that I think you could take kids to, but for a little bit there wasn't really kids movies in the theater.
I mean,
Um,
Beetlejuice 1, which sounds
yeah.
weird to say.
Uh-huh.
Regular Beetlejuice, was a PG movie.
Yeah, this
Um,
is PG-13, I think. Although sometimes I look stuff up and it's actually the Canadian version and it's
this
not
one,
the
yeah,
American version, so
PG-13, it
yeah.
was Beetlejuice. But,
Okay.
like, yeah, so Beetlejuice, OG was PG, and so, not
Beetlejuice drops an
surprising.
F-bomb in Beetlejuice. I don't remember if he does that in Beetlejuice, but he does in Beetlejuice. But maybe kids are more hip these days and they hear the F word a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
well,
who knows?
there's a movie that I think has potential to be big hit coming out, a bit of a surprise hit. Played at TIFF, I believe Kevin mentioned it. The Wild Robot comes out this Friday. It's an animated film. Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, Bill Nighy. It got rave reviews out of TIFF. People are talking about it that maybe even in a very weak Oscars years could be a Best Picture contender. So The Wild Robot comes out this Friday, and also Megalopolis comes out this Friday. I cannot
Mm.
wait to see if they keep the scene in that supposedly has audience interaction, where like a somebody at the theater has to go in and talk to the screen. I'm kind of praying that these little like movie theater employees who are like 17 years old are gonna have to like they're gonna get a part of Megalopolis have to go in each screening and like yell at the screen, or whether they edit it out. Um, so exciting. And I think Saturday Night is getting a limited release before a wider release in the near future, which is the SNL movie. And Folia Do comes out pretty soon too. So I think we're headed into a little bit of an exciting movie time.
Heading into the
But
fall.
heading into the fall. Do you have anything else, Taran?
I think that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. There's some stuff. The Mickey 17 trailer dropped a little bit of a
Mm.
delayed. I kept getting pushed back, seemingly. I actually think a late January release is actually not a super bad thing for a movie that
This
I'm
is,
very excited
Bong
about.
Joon-ho's new movie, who
And
did
Robert
Parasite
Pattinson.
very recently.
Yeah, it's about there's there in space. Mickey 17 is the 17th version of an individual named Mickey, and these are people who have signed up to basically do the most dangerous space missions, and see what happens. It looks quite good. I'm very excited by this. I don't think a late January release is that much of a bad thing for Mickey 17. And so I'm excited by that, but long ways to go for that. So the trailer
I mean, I
dropped,
will
but
say,
not much else.
the track record for, Korean directors, at least my favorite Korean directors, going for English language films, I tend to like them. The success has been limited, I think. So I'm curious to see. I mean, this is probably the most success that a Korean director has come off of with Parasite, with the Best Picture win. I mean, it's been, like 5 years, since
Yeah, I
then,
know.
but I'm curious to see how much, and by success, I really mean commercially more than anything. Um, like, can this, gain some traction and be something that, Bong Joon-ho was able to pull off another one?
The only thing I mean, I think whether or not it's like a best picture, like it doesn't need to have Oscar nominations to be considered a success. It could just be a really good movie, and it doesn't. We don't have to worry about the Oscars. I do think it's such a weak year for best picture that I do think if they had more faith in the movie, there is a world where it was coming out a little sooner. Because I think you do
Mhm.
want a little bit of the runtime on an Oscar movie. There's this like balance, I think. A lot of the movies that have won have actually like doesn't matter. They came out, or like Everything Ever All at Once came out quite early in the year. Like you can get it. You can have a movie that has long legs. Like the question right now is about Dune 2 and whether Dune 2 came out too soon to be in the. But I think it's been such a weak year that I would not. I would not put money on Dune 2 winning, but like I don't think they're the worst odds you could get. It's so weak that you would think that potentially like releasing Mickey 17 in the fall would give you some runway, but it's yet to be seen whether it's that type of movie. Is it a movie that they even think has um because it's space and it's sci-fi. Might not be that, and they're just putting it out at a time of year they think will be the most successful for that reason. So yeah. Have you been watching English Teacher's the other one? I think, I don't know. Again, I can't remember if we've mentioned it. People keep it's like, oh, you forgot English Teacher. I can't remember. I know they had a little bit of a controversial episode. 4 is a little bit of a potential controversial topic in that episode, but overall, I've been really enjoying English Teacher and think it's really hitting. FX, they know how to make a comedy. I think between like What We Do in the Shadows, English Teacher, they know how to do it over there. So fun show that I encourage people to be checking out. There's a lot of good TV on right now, I think.
Yeah. Also, I know High Potential just started, I believe, at ABC with Caitlin Olsen, and I've heard good things.
Okay, ABC Hulu.
Fun little crime comedy kind of deal. So
okay, I like that.
I think it's like she's like a shift cleaner at the police department. She solves crimes.
This is from Drew Goddard, who has written The Martian, World War Z, Cloverfield, and then also wrote on Buffy, Angel, Alias, and Lost. Not bad.
So, could be worth checking out.
Okay, fun.
All right, I think that's what we have.
That's a lot. Yeah, a lot of stuff all over the board. Not a big story, I think, this week, but yeah.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you then. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. Of course, tune in next week for another Tastemakers. We'll see what we can do for you there. And in the meantime, we've got Rings of Power, The Penguin, Industry, all kinds of fun stuff coming out for podcasting, podcasting wise, I should say. Grace, anything else?
No, we're doing Penguin recaps, Rings of Power recaps, Industry recaps, one more episode of Industry, and we'll see what comes after.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us then, and we will see all of you next time.